Hey y'all, guess what? 5 more days. That's right, we are on day 85. We are in our last week of the Psalms, y'all. I'm so excited. I am so full of joy about this journey, and as we get closer and closer to the end, I keep reflecting on everything we've read, all of the discussions, and just the growth that occurs by getting in God's Word and getting to know Him a little bit more. So I pray that you felt that impact too, that you know God just a little bit better by reading these Psalms. So I want to get started on today's reading, but first, you know what to do. Please like and share this video, comment, give me your revelations, give me your thoughts, give me your overall feeling about this journey. And of course, if you are not subscribed, please go ahead, click that button, make sure your notifications are turned on. All right, let's get into it. All right, so I'm going to read Psalm 143, and I'm going to read from the ESV. Hear my prayer, O Lord. Give ear to my pleas for mercy. In your faithfulness answer me, in your righteousness. Enter not into judgment with your servant, for no one living is righteous before you. For the enemy has pursued my soul. He has crushed my life to the ground. He has made me sit in darkness like those long dead. Therefore my spirit faints within me. My heart within me is appalled. I remember the days of old. I meditate on all that you have done. I ponder the work of your hands. I stretch out my hands to you. My soul thirsts for you like a parched land. Selah. Answer me quickly, O Lord. My spirit fails. Hide not your face from me, lest I be like those who go down to the pit. Let me hear in the morning of your steadfast love, for in you I trust. Make me known the way I should go, for to you I lift up my soul. Deliver me from my enemies, O Lord. I have fled to you for refuge. Teach me to do your will, for you are my God. Let your good spirit lead me on level ground. For your name's sake, O Lord, preserve my life. In your righteousness bring my soul out of trouble. And in your steadfast love you will cut off my enemies, and you will destroy all the adversaries of my soul, for I am your servant. So this is the last of the laments of David, which we have read over the past few days. We've been discussing how these laments can be applied to us spiritually. First, we looked at how the enemy operates in Psalm 140. Next, in Psalm 141, we discussed our stature while we are facing the enemy's schemes. Then yesterday we talked about the humanistic, the emotional side, the implications of enduring attacks and what wholeness and freedom means. So today I want to take a look at how and what David appeals to in God. In other words, there are certain qualities of God that David puts his hope and trust into. So let's start to break this psalm down. In verse 1, David is appealing to first God's faithfulness and second to his righteousness. God's faithfulness means that not only will he hear David's prayer, but he will answer it because he has made a covenant with David. Of course, God's righteousness then is always true. God can only do what is right. Verse 2 is in regards to God's mercy. David is asking for leniency, to not stand in trial for his wrongs. And his point is that everyone is sinning, and he doesn't want to be the one that is picked on. For us, this is almost getting into justification through the cross, that as Paul said in Romans 3, we all fall short of the glory of God. But through Jesus Christ, God's mercy has been extended to us already. Moving on to verses 3 and 4, in my opinion, they are appealing to God's fatherly or even his shepherd-like side. That a father doesn't want to see his child endure and go through these things, and a shepherd is constantly guarding his flock from the things that stalk and prowl, the predators that are after them. This is also then God's compassionate side, that overall he has this love for his people that cannot be denied, that he must hear and see the things that they are going through. Verse 5 is looking to God's consistency, that the same God who led the Israelites out of Egypt through the wilderness and into Canaan is the same God who can lead David out of this situation. Now that's from a historical perspective. Perhaps David here was looking at his personal history with God. Maybe that the same God who gave David the power to slay Goliath is the same God who will give him the power to overcome the enemy in the situation now. I believe then in verse 6 that David is speaking to God's desire that everyone come to him, that everyone pray to him, that everyone submit to him, and most importantly, that everyone glorify him, right? That is why we were created, to glorify him. Verse 7 is an acknowledgement of the power of God's presence, that deliverance is a part of God's nearness. He is not a God that is far off. He is near, and therefore he will deliver. Verse 8, of course, appeals to God's steadfast love, which I'm going to come back to, but it's also saying, I trust you. So it is a stance of faith, and faith is what God requires of his children. I think that the second half of this verse, verse 8, there's also this submission of David to God, that he is acknowledging God's authority, his infinite wisdom, and is saying, show me the way to go because you know better than I know. Verse 9 then speaks to God's power and love, that he is a mighty deliverer, but he is also a tender caregiver that provides shelter, protection, and refuge. I then see God's holiness in verse 10. That his will is perfect, his way is perfect, his spirit is perfect. And so to submit to and allow him to lead is saying, God, you are good and perfect, so I'm letting you take control. I'm letting you have your way in this situation. Verse 11 is appealing to God's faithfulness and consistency again, that he has a reputation of keeping his word. And that is what for your name's sake means, that you have a reputation to upkeep, God. So do this now because you have said that you are a God who will do these things. And we see then in the latter half of verse 11 again that there is this appeal to God's righteousness. Finally, in verse 12, we end at this perfect place, the surrender to God's steadfast love. My revelation comes with this. At the ending, we see the Hebrew word hesed again. We have seen this throughout the Psalms many times, and it means God's all-encompassing love. So once again, this psalm tells us that what we need to do when we are facing different trials, when we have people coming up against us, when we are enduring these sufferings, his love includes all of the things that we need. His love is his righteousness, his holiness, his deliverance. It includes his faithfulness and consistency. His love is a fatherly love. It is a shepherd's love. It is protection. All we need to do is call out to him. We have access to all of these qualities of God, and it is by his steadfast love that he allows us to be recipients of it. So if you are going through, if you know someone who is going through, just encourage yourself or someone else to let it all out, to appeal to God's love, that he hears cries, that he hears his qualities in your voice, that he just wants you to submit to him, that he wants you to acknowledge that he is a deliverer, that he is a helper, that he is consistent and faithful, and he wants to know that you know these things about him. So there is purpose in your cry. There is power in your cry because it is an acknowledgement of who God is. All right, y'all. We only have 5 more days to go. So keep pressing through. We're going to get through this. Please share this video. Like I said before, it might help someone out. And again, go back through this psalm, pull out some new things from it, go into the Hebrew, look up that word hesed again, and I'm going to come back right here tomorrow for day 86. All right, y'all. Have a good day. Bye.